In this video, our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts will demonstrate the main features of our new release. Feel free to jump straight to the features you're interested in by using the timestamps in the description below. Let's dive in and hear from our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts.
Hello everyone, I'm Ashok Rajshekhar from SAP Analytics Cloud Development Team. Today I'll showcase you the latest improvements in the admin and service management area, that is SAP Analytics Cloud home screen renewal enhancements. With the 2025 Q4 QRC release, the SAP Analytics Cloud homepage just got smarter and easier to use. From faster personalization to enhanced admin flexibility and improved metric visibility, these updates are all about saving time and keeping you focused on what drives results. Let's take a quick look at what's new and why you love it.
First improvement is about resizable cards. Users can now resize homepage cards vertically, horizontally, or both, depending upon the card type. Let's take an example of my welcome card, where I would like to resize the card to horizontally. As you can see, there's an option available to indicate I can do a resize horizontally, and I can also put it back. And there is also a resources card where I'll be able to, it's arranged in a list. To view the complete list of resources, I can use the resize option to view all the content. I can also resize it to vertical to see all the content here. So second, a feature which I would like to highlight is on the admin editable resources cards. So as you might be knowing, that resources card is currently a static content where users will be able to see the SSC helpful resources, but we are providing an option for the tenant administrators managing and sharing the critical information just got a lot easier. Now, SSC tenant admins can now edit the resources card by adding in few custom resources. This means you can curate and provide direct links to essential internal documents, training materials, and company portals or any other relevant information. So for the system administration interface, under the default appearance, administrator will see a new edit option on the resources card. Clicking on the edit icon allows you to admins to add or remove links with a live preview of the card. Admins can also reset the card using to default appearance and restore the default links. So as you can see here, there are already selected resources. For example, I would like to add a new custom resource. So as you click on custom resource, you will be able to add image, okay, and also resource title, subtitle, and a link. Here in this example, I would like to add an SAP logo here and also a link, which I would like to redirect to my business data cloud link. So now I would like to call it as business data cloud, and the subtitle would be BDC. Now, as you can see, the link is already available. You can prioritize this link, rearrange the link to the top, and then this will be available. You can quickly see a card preview. So once you save it, this will be automatically available in the home page. So you'd like to refresh this page. Yeah, as you can see. So once you click on this, it will redirect to the business data cloud homepage. Now, the third feature improvement that we also have added is on the, if you have noticed, all the homepage cards have been updated to align with the latest SAP Analytics Cloud themes, ensuring a cohesive and modern visual experience. Thank you.
Starting 2025 QRC4, SAP Analytics Cloud released a set of Horizon themes which is modern with cohesive visual language aligned across SAP's product suite. The new set of themes including Horizon Morning, Horizon Evening, Horizon High Contrast, White, and Black. When the user first log on to QRC4 once it's updated, there's a pop-up indicating the availability of new Horizon theme. User can simply click Switch to Horizon to enjoy the new SAC innovation. The entire UI has been adapted across all the functionalities to the new themes. For example, if we go to the story, then the story viewer has been adapted. We open the story view time as well as the design time, everything has been aligned with the new theme. also have a quick look at the file repository, which is also updated with the new UI. As end user, you can easily change your themes with the new updated user preference. We now enhance the UI to have a bigger screen, allow easy navigation through different options. Go to the appearance. You can easily navigate from the current horizon morning to horizon evening. The theme will be adapted instantly. We can also change to contrast white, high contrast, black, as you wish. So as the admin, we can also change the default theme for all the users logging onto the tenant. Going to administration, default appearance, we have the new option to change the tenant theme, for example, to Horizon Morning. In the future SAC release, we might use Horizon Morning as a default theme. Stay tuned for the further updates. Thank you for watching.
With the introduction of My Metrics, we wanted to ensure that this was directly available as part of the brand new homepage experience. Under Customize, the user will now see that they have an additional card called My Metrics that can be either configured on or off. Within the metrics tile itself, the user can select a metrics list that they're interested in. These could either be their private metrics list or a public metrics list that they have access to. The user can simply select on a metric that they're interested in viewing. We will then take them to the metrics module, where there are 3 sections that they're interested in. On the left-hand side, you have all the corresponding metrics that are associated to this metrics list, which are coming from different stories and different data models. They have the detailed visualization that was configured at the time that they added the metric to their metrics list. And then they have the insights that are dynamically generated to this corresponding metric. The user has the ability to continue to find additional insights by simply right-clicking on a data point and selecting Smart Insights. This will then pass on the filter context over into Smart Insights, where additional insights will then be generated. On the left-hand side, we allow for some additional interactivity. For example, the user can simply switch across the different metrics lists that they have access to, whether those are their own personal metrics list or ones that have been shared with them. Or the user can simply sort on the data, for example, from A to Z. Under the 3-dot menu, there's additional configuration options, such as the Show Difference As, where they can change it from percentage to absolute, where all metrics are then dynamically updated. On top of that, we wanted to ensure that My Metrics was themable. So as a user goes into their settings and changes their appearance from, for example, Horizon Morning to Horizon Evening, you will notice the entire metrics list dynamically updates, not having the user to worry about how things look and feel. The user can simply navigate back and all the content updates once again. Now, how do you create a metric? We wanted to make sure it was easy and personable. So a user can simply go to any existing dashboard and either right-click on a visualization, i.e. a chart, where they have the option to add the visualization to their metrics list, or they can simply right-click on a data point and also click on Add to Metrics. Once the user does that, we take the entire filter context over. On top of that, if there's any existing comparison that has been pre-configured, this will also be propagated. To help the user configure their metric, we have a metric optimization that allows them to know how rich their metric is. I can simply click on Edit Metric Details, where I'm then provided into a simplified metric dialog. The user could further filter down their data if they wanted to, or they could completely update the comparison. As an example, as I remove the metric or the comparison that's applied to the metric, we will actually showcase the comparisons that we retrieved from the visualization or ones that are suggested based on the data context. I can simply click on one again, and it's dynamically updated. The next step is for the user to configure their detailed visualization. By default, we take it directly from what the user had added the metric from, but we allow some additional configuration here. Note, for the metric that has been created, we will actually prevent you from removing this from the detailed visualization to ensure data continuity. And then by simply clicking Save, the metric has been added. Biometrics really focuses on ensuring that any user can create a personalized list without having to worry about the complexity. As they navigate back to their metrics, they can always jump back to the original story to continue their detailed analysis whenever required.
Hi, my name is Thomas Feri from SAP Analytics Cloud Product Management. Today I'm showing you the latest innovations in enterprise readiness, the feature model size statistics and analysis. This feature is important from a performance perspective as well as from system stability perspective. If we keep model sizes small, we have less data to work on, which means faster planning and BI reporting scenarios. HANA database tables have a limit of 2 billion records. Thus, growing model sizes in SAC need to be monitored to keep the tenant operationable. The new feature brings transparency to the model sizes in the tables or data categories. It allows to analyze historical information to understand growth patterns, identify trends or cycles, and detect wrong settings, for example in the audit log settings or data access control. We provide more context to the data growth by combining the import job data and data published statistics with the model sizes to allow you to understand how and why the data is growing in your tenant. All this said helps us to keep the data footprint reasonable, which leads to faster BI reports and planning tasks. Now I would like to show you in the system how this looks like live. The new story is published to SAC content in the system file directory. You can access the story directly via the side menu of SAC, navigating to performance and then opening model size statistics and analysis. This is how the story looks like in the system. At the top you have an input control filter bar where you can specify a model dimension or data category. For example, if you're interested in only large audit data tables, then you could select this in the data category. Below this you have the key KPIs, which give you a direct impression what's going on at the tenant, what's the total record size currently. Below that you have the analysis part, which is the most important one here. You get an overview about the top 30 models or dimensions depending on your selection on the left side to see the top 30 models by their total record size and the size of the data categories like audit, transaction, master data, and so on. When we scroll down a little bit, we see the historical information, how the records in the system grow by data category. We see an overview about the import jobs and the version publishes per selected date, which is already a good starting point to see what's going on in the system, how the data grows over time or what actions are done to the data, and then see the relation to the import jobs and the version publish events. This data is even more insightful when we select a specific model and then get the breakdown into this model's data categories, which can then be drilled down further. For example, we want to understand now why the audit data table in our biggest model is growing to 100 million records. We can select the data category audit to filter our additional statistics for this specific data category. And we see that on September 16, the audit database table grows, which can be mapped directly to the version publish events for this specific date. That's the basic functions of our new tooling, SAC model size statistics and analysis, but there's a lot more to explore.
Hello, my name is Bettina Denonville. I'm Product Manager for Data Analyzer and will present you the new innovations as part of the QRC Q4 release. There are two major updates in the area of the Excel export. The first innovation is an improvement for quick sharing. If you export your data to Microsoft Excel, you'll find a new option within the export dialog to add a shortcut link to the appendix of your exported file. This shortcut link is created on the fly and represents the current filter and navigation state of your dataset. If you have opened the shortcut link and you export from there without any further changes, the currently open shortcut link is used and added to the file. That means the shortcut link state in the export always matches the result set of your exported data. The second is that the date and the date time format is now preserved when you export your data to Microsoft Excel. It uses the date format as you defined it within your user settings in SAC. In the scheduling task, the date format matches the settings of the user who scheduled the exported file, and in the bursting task, the date format matches the settings of the user who received the exported file. Within Story, you can now add a hyperlink to your story table in order to jump to a data analyzer inside. You have the option to open then the insight in Data Analyzer in New tab or in the overlay mode. And you have the option to customize how to deal with the filter context. You can choose whether only the selected dimension should be brought over as a filter, or if all filters that impact your visualization should be transferred to the insight. Now I'm going to jump to the live demo. I open my story in Story Design Time. As you can see, I already created a hyperlink here on the table widget. In the hyperlink panel, you will see Data Analyzer as a new jump target. You can easily pick an insight from the file browser. I didn't tick the Open in New tab option, so it opens automatically in Overlay. And I want to apply all filters that impact the visualization, as my story has a story filter which should also be applied. On the table widget, you can follow the link either through the context menu, following go to link, navigate to details per country, or you can click directly on the data cell. I'm interested in the details of country Canada. The insight opens in Overlay. Both filters are correctly brought over. The insight provides me already a detailed view on the cities of country Canada. And from here, I can then continue with my slice and dice analysis. Next, I'll show you the innovations within the Excel export. I opened a BW Live query which has calendar day as a dimension as well as 2 measures defined, and the date format is according to my user settings. And now I export the data to Excel. At the same time, I add a shortcut link. From here, I open the Excel. And as you can see, the format has been correctly exported for the dimension as well as for the measures. And within the appendix, you will see the shortcut link. This has been automatically created and added here to the appendix. So that's it from my side for today. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello everyone. In this demo, we demonstrate the export of master data hierarchies using the Data Export API. Here we have a sample model that contains many dimensions, including public dimensions. Many of these dimensions, as you can see here, contain 2 or more hierarchies. Let's focus now on one particular hierarchy or dimension that contains a hierarchy called Activity Subtype MS. You can see here that this contains 4 parent-child hierarchies. So let's open these hierarchies. This one in particular is called Activities, and this is the information that we would extract from the API, the ID, the description, and the mandatory value. In the table view, we can see each hierarchy ID for this dimension is listed as a separate column. When we switch to the graph view and expand on the activities hierarchy under each parent, the ordering is important. The parent ID, the order ID, and the previous ID are important pieces of information that is obtained here and utilized by the API. So next, let's copy the model ID over to our API client, as this will be used for the export. The first step is to extract all the metadata for this model. It takes a few moments. So what we've done is we've copied the ID to run the fetch request. And this has returned the information on our model. And this includes, if we do a search for the activity subtype MS dimension, we can see this information. We can search again for the dimension, and this time include the new endpoint with hierarchy, and we can see the metadata for the dimension that includes a hierarchy information. And this includes the ID, the description, and the mandatory value. So next we fetch the entity set name. This now includes master data with hierarchy. So if we run this request, we'll return all of the entity set names that are part of this model. And we can see here the activity subtype MS master with hierarchy. And we can add that now to our request. And now we can extract all of the hierarchy information belonging to this dimension. You can see here the 4 hierarchies that are included here, which is activities, data entry, marketing mix, and marketing mix 2025. And each section contains its relevant parent ID, previous ID, and order ID. So that concludes the demo of exporting master data hierarchies using the Data Export API. Thanks a lot for listening.
With Q4 2025, SAP Analytics Cloud Compass will support a seamless planning setup. This means that you can now also simulate straight off an SEC model deployed in SAP Datasphere. On top of that, you can also simulate directly with Datasphere data by using a live version connection. Let me show you how it looks like. In this dashboard, you can see that a seamless planning model behind this table has 2 visible versions. One of them is a connection to a live version with data from SAP Datasphere. I can run Compass with any of the versions here. For this example, I will create a Compass simulation directly from the dashboard using this live version. As usual, the simulation drivers are automatically detected from the SAP Analytics Cloud model definitions, but here the baseline data are from SAP Datasphere. It is possible to select any desired version for the simulation, but we will stay with the live version for now and model our assumptions of probable range for KPIs. To explore the impact on free cash flow, we will run this scenario with 10,000 calculations on the live version data. Let us save this simulation because I would like to show you what happens if there's an update in the original data, which in this example is a CSV file. Let us alter the value for KPIs in the CSV file. In SAP Datasphere, we will upload the updated CSV to the local table, which the live version for the simulation is based on. We will then deploy the change. If we return now to our Compass simulation and perform a refresh, we will immediately be notified with a warning for our KPIs driver with the information that the baseline has changed.
This behavior is consistent across all supported versions for compass simulation to ensure that we are always simulating with the latest data. With the live version support, we can extend this confidence also to simulations with data from SAP Datasphere. Thank you for watching.
Hi, my name is Scott Godfrey, and I'm one of the product managers with SAP Analytics Cloud. I focus primarily on planning topics. Today, I'm going to cover some of the new enhancements we have coming as part of our Q4 2025 QRC release in the planning area. And we'll start with an enhancement we have to data actions, and specifically cross-model copy step. So previously, when you would define a cross-model copy step and you would select the source model, much of the mapping for the dimensions you would have to do would be manual. So it would automatically typically detect the measures and the date dimensions. But now with this new enhancement, essentially any dimensions that either match on ID or description will be automatically mapped. So this sort of simplifies the initial setup of that cross-model copy step. So with that, let's jump over and just show a short demo of this. So I'm in my data action. I'll go ahead and create a new cross-model copy step. And for simplicity, what I'm going to do is select the same source model as the target model. So now when I do that, you'll see that I have the dimensions all mapped. Of course, I still do have some things I need to deal with, like the version dimension as the filter, some measures that are not automatically going to map, and the account. But of course, the work to do this mapping is significantly reduced versus what would have occurred previously. So this is the new enhancement we have to the cross-model copy step with our Q4 2025 QRC release.
Hi, this is Lucas from Product Management. With the input control and story filter binding to the data action script object, we filled a little gap in our scripting object to the story starters. As you can see in this example, we have a data action that copies something from a source version to a target version. When linking our input controls to the data action, we can save the story and execute it later in the view mode. After selecting then the parameters from the target version and from the source version, we can run it via button script. Later on, let's prove we've got it with the input controls and the job monitor. Hi, this is Lucas from Product Management. With our newest release, we make it possible to sort parameters directly during data action design time. As you can see in this example, we have 3 different parameters and are now able to rearrange them. For end users, this now becomes visible when executing a data action via starter and then seeing the variable pop up.
The next improvement I want to talk about today is a change we've made to our end user upload. So up until this point, the only options for the upload method were either to update or to append. But now we've introduced a clean and replace subset of data option. So if the user is going to upload that data, they may want to delete the existing data within the scope of the file they're uploading, and then of course replace that with the uploaded data. So that now becomes an option. You can select the clean and replace subset of data when the modeler is creating the upload job. And of course they can define the dimension subset replacement scope to be cleaned based on the particular upload job. So this reduces the risk that we have invalid records, either based on incrementing records that we didn't intend to or leaving records that should have been purged previously. So let's jump over and see this in action. So I already have a job, an upload job defined in my model. We'll go ahead and look at the settings for this upload job. And if we look at the job settings, you'll see I have a new option under import method, which is clean and replace subset of data. I, of course, have already defined that the entity dimension and the date dimension would be the replacement scope. So we'll purge common records across those 2 dimensions. I could add others if I wanted to. So I won't make any changes to that. And I will flip over to our story. And I already have an update trigger. I'm going to replace my record for 2025 because, of course, it was based on region and time. So we should see the 2024 records stay as they are. The 2025 records for Best Bike Inc. will be cleaned, and then, of course, will be replaced with the contents of the file that I'm uploading. So now we've refreshed, and the old records were purged, and my new records replaced those for 2025. So this is the clean and replace subset of data with our end user upload as part of our Q4 2025 QRC release. The next enhancement I want to talk about is improvements to scheduling and process management in the calendar. And specifically, this is the concept of the factory or workday calendar. So now you can establish a custom calendar for scheduling purposes. You do that by defining a model with a date dimension. You would take that date dimension and make it a custom or user managed date dimension, and you have to add a selective property to it. And within that property, you can configure the specific days at the day level to reflect whether it's a working day or not. And then when you go to schedule a task in the calendar, or let's say a recurrence of a publication, you can define that relative to the working days rather than relative to the standard calendars. And also within the calendar, you can display the working versus non-working days. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. So we'll start with the configuration aspect of this. So you'll see I have a model here, working days. This is a purpose-built model just to define the working days. So in my date dimension, I'm at the day granularity. I'm just going to go ahead and filter out these other attributes. And you'll see that I have this attribute calendar working days, where I have defined either a 0 or a 1. Now this calendar working days, in order to make this work, I have to have a property whose prefix starts with cal underscore working underscore day underscore, right? And I want that to be of text length 1. Then I can fill that with 0 or 1 to reflect whether it's a working day or not. Now if we just navigate down and look at the start of November here, I have a working day on the 1st, the 2nd and the 3rd are non-working days, and then I have 5 working days in a row. Okay. So we'll use that as our peg when we navigate over and look at this in the calendar itself. So let's jump over to the calendar. And here I have one task already set up, and that's to give me the visual cues over what is and is not a working day. So you see that gray area means it's non-working, any white is working. And in the Gantt chart settings, I have this ability to toggle on or off the display of the working day calendar. So we'll re-enable that. And we'll see that the gray boxes reappear, indicating non-working days. Now, if I select year, I zoom out a little, I can see a little more clearly working and non-working days. Okay. Now, the pattern is not consistent for the whole year. That's why it looks a little bit different. Let's go ahead and schedule a data action. And I'm going to create my data action of copy plan. I'm going to add the recurrence, and I'm going to set the recurrence based on working days. And just for our example, I'll say we want to run it every 3rd working day. And we're going to start on November the 4th. And we'll run it for, let's just say, 4 occurrences. All right, so when we create this, we're now going to see the instances of the task in the calendar. And we'll see that they are staggered based on the every 3rd working day. Okay, so this is the automatic task in the calendar. Let's jump over and look at this in scheduled publication. So in my story, if I were just to schedule a publication, I'm going to have a similar option when I go for recurrence, right? I now have this ability to define it based on a working day. In this case, let's say it's the 1st working day of the week. And of course, we could start just on October 15th in my example. And I have to add myself. And it will run for 8 occurrences, right? So we'll go ahead and create that. Okay. So this is scheduling based on a working day calendar as part of our Q4 release. This next enhancement is one we're very excited about and we've been working on for some time. And that's the integration of remote data live within a planning model using our version dimension. So this is our first major step related to federation for planning scenarios. So there's two flavors to this. The first is in the context of Business Data Cloud and integration with SAP Datasphere, our seamless planning initiative. And the second is using SQL live sources such as Google BigQuery. Now I'm going to focus primarily on the first case from a demo perspective, but it does work in both scenarios. So this allows you now to point at an external view from the source, integrate that into a selective version within the model, and when you make that linkage, you'll get a detection of fact and master data mismatches that may exist in the source versus the local model, and you can correct those. Now, the important thing to note is that you can use this version as a source in planning operations. You cannot modify the data directly on that external version, but you can use it in table copy and paste operations, data actions, and other model calculations. These can all utilize that external version. So with that, let's jump over and show this in action. So just to start, we'll see that I have a view in Datasphere, VDSP sales actuals. Now I'm navigating over to my story. You'll see that I have a plan version, I have a forecast version, and I have an actual version. And the actuals and the forecast version are blank right now. Now what I want to do is integrate this actuals view from Datasphere into my sales plan model. You'll see that I have saved this model. It is saved in Datasphere. That is a requirement. My model is exposed. Now I don't actually have to do that to consume the external version, but I do have to persist it in Datasphere, and the view has to exist in the same space that my model is persisted. You'll see that when I connect this external data source, I can use the existing version. I can create a new version. I'm going to select the actuals. And I'm going to point to the specific view that I have that I want to use as the source for the external versions. That's this VDSP sales actual. When I select that, I'm going to be prompted to map the fields in the source view to my model dimensions and measures. So I've got my sales revenue measure. I'm going to map that to a column sales revenue in the source. My month from the source is going to map to my date dimension. My product and my region will map. I'll click OK. And what we'll notice right away is that now in the data foundation layer, I actually see this version actual with a live connection, and I see data. And under my external live version sources, I have this DSP sales actual. I can at any point come in and change the mapping if I need to. If something changes in the source that I need to remap, I could do that. So we'll go ahead and save the model. So that model is saved. Now I'll flip over to my story, and when I do a refresh, I'll see that now I do have actuals for 2024 and Q1 of 2025 in my actuals version, coming from that external view in Datasphere. Now, I don't have the ability to modify the actuals directly, because of course that's a live version. I wouldn't want to do that anyhow, especially for actuals. But I can use that as a source to do operations such as copy and paste. So in this case, I could copy my actuals 2024 to my Q1 forecast in 2025. And then of course after that I could make any additional changes to the version if I wanted to do that. But I'm not limited to only copy and paste in the table. I can, for example, use that actuals version as a source in a data action. Right? We'll show that next. So if I just clear my target in Q1 2025, I have a seed forecast data action that's going to copy Q1 of 2025 actuals and the rest of the year from my plan in 2025, right? And it will copy that to the Q1 forecast. So I blend the forecast from my actuals 2025 and my rest of year plan. So this is the planning with live versions being released as part of our Q4 2025 QRC release. Another change we've made this quarter is to relax the restriction on the number of validation rules that a public dimension could be used in. So previously the cap for this was 10 rules. With this QRC release, we're relaxing that to 25 rules. So a given public dimension can be utilized in up to 25 rules.
Hi, this is Lucas from Product Management. With our newest release, we made it possible to have an API to delete private versions and public edit versions from other users. As you can see in this example, we have provided a new API to get all public and private edit versions of different users. In this example, we then delete those versions of a specific user. How to perform those actions? As you can see here in the scripting, we created a new API to get the private versions of a user. Those will be stored and saved in this dropdown, and afterwards we have a different script, and this different script allows us to delete all of those private versions for the user.
This quarter, we're introducing an enhancement to shared private versions. So if a private version owner shares a version with another user in write access, that user with whom the version has been shared has the ability to view the history panel for changes in the version and undo and redo any recent changes that they made. They can see the entire history of changes, but they can only roll back their most recent changes up until another user has made changes. So this makes private versions and simulations with private versions for non-owners more flexible. So let's jump over and see this in action. So in this instance, in the story, I am a user with whom a version has been shared, this BB simulation version. I can see that it's been shared with me. And now I have access to the history panel, where I can see all changes, my own and other changes. Of course, I can't roll back changes if they were made by another user. But what I can do, of course, is if I start making additional modifications to the version data, those will be tracked in the history panel, and I have the ability to undo them and also to redo them. Now I could go ahead and make additional changes. If I were to make several changes here, of course they will be tracked in the most recent changes, and as you'll see, those are all available for me to then roll back or roll forward, right, up until the point where the other user, Scott Godfrey, my primary account, has made a change. Now I'm not restricted to only doing this in the version management panel. The undo and redo become available here in the quick menu, right? So I can roll forward and roll back the most recent change that I'm looking at. So this is the updates to the shared private version we've made with our Q4 2025 QRC release.
Hello, I'm Jeanne Bigonnet, Product Manager for SAP Analytics Cloud add-in for Microsoft Excel. I'm happy to share with you the latest deliveries for the Excel add-in for QRC4 2025. First, one important update this quarter is the delivery of a test version which will be available 3 weeks before any RTC release for testing purposes. This means you will be able to deploy a preview version using a note that describes the entire process. Then, you can manually download the manifest and test the upcoming features in advance. This gives you the opportunity to validate the features before any RTC release, and if you identify issues, you can report them directly to us. Please refer to the accompanying note for more details. Next, we have introduced the capability to create a new type of account or measure called a restricted account measure directly from the designer panel. You can define your own measure or account based on another dimension. For example, you could create a specific account named gross margin for a particular region and time period. Once created, you can select this new member like any other member in your report. Let's see a live demo in the product. In this example, I have the dimension account in rows, And I have the arrivals in quantity defined by a category, commodity, and district name. Here, the list of commodity is displayed, containing all the members of the dimension commodity. Let's assume I want to create a specific restricted account for these arrivals based on only 2 commodity, like banana or carrots, and only work with these 2 combination. And for that, I can go to the designer panel, and beside the account, I can create a restricted account. So here, if I click, you can see that based on a specific naming and a specific account, in my case here, I can add any dimension from my model to specify a combination and to create this new restricted account. And here I know that I have already created 2 restricted accounts. In my case, the first one is based on the commodity carrots, and the second one is about banana. And they are not displayed in my report yet, so I can go in the filter tab now and remove all the selected member, current selected member, and then I can select the arrivals only for carrots and banana. And then when I do so, the report will be rebuilt, and then I can only work with these 2 restricted accounts. Of course, because it's a planning model, I could also do data entry, as you can see, and I could also process the data and start the planning on any restricted measure. We are also introducing the capability to rename dimensions and measures directly in the designer panel. This will help to customize the report based on your specific functional needs. Please note that this change applies only in the current workbook. However, you will be able to use the new name everywhere in the workbook, including in table and custom functions. Let's have a look into the product. In this example, we will modify the commodity name here of this dimension. So it's really easy. I have to go here in the designer panel, and I can directly change and name it product. Click enter, and you see it's automatically visible in the designer panel as in the report itself. Finally, we are providing an option to switch to performance mode for tables, enabling to export large volume of data in real time using the Excel add-in. This new mode is designed for extraction scenarios only, where you need to work with more than 1 million cells in a table or workbook. Based on our last test, you can see what does it mean if we take the refresh as an example. So in orange, you can see the standard mode, and in green, the high volume mode or performance mode. So here you can see that before 1 million cells, this mode does not really make sense to be used. But when you reach more than 1 million of cells, it's really key, because then the standard mode does not work, and usually the add-in is crashing. So it's now really easy to switch to this new performance mode. Let's see how this works in the product. With the add-in, when we are in standard mode, which is the current mode to create table, there is a strong limitation to not bypass 4 GB of memory. After, if you bypass this limitation, you can get crashes on the add-in. So that's why we have decided to find a solution, and that's why we have now developed a new mode named Performance Mode that you can retrieve directly beside the name of the table as an option to go into Performance Mode. With this mode, you are not limited anymore, and we will see that we expect really strong improvement in terms of volume supported and performance. But for the first version, we have some limitation. The first one is when you are in performance mode, you cannot do planning. So because this mode is really built for a massive export of data, we think it's really the matter of not having planning first, it's not so crucial. But also we have other limitations like the property, we cannot display the property in performance mode. And all these limitations are described in the help guide of the add-in. So in my example here, I have a property for the district name, which is displayed. As soon as I will switch to the performance mode and refresh it, you can see it already below the name of the table. And here we don't see anymore the properties. And you see also another display for the account dimension where the name of the member is repeated. Now, if we look at the expected improvement based in our last test, you can see the difference between the standard mode and the performance mode, and this is huge. So, based on the different configuration from the backend, you see the number of cells that you can now insert into the tables and inside the workbook. So this is a great improvement that you can retrieve. So again, the workflow is that you start in standard mode and after you switch to performance mode. Of course, you could switch back from performance mode to standard mode again if you want to do planning or if you want to display the properties. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to watch new video for Q4 release. As part of Q4 release for story design, we have introduced or we have redesigned how the color palettes within the theme would work. So now we allow users to delete the standard as well as the custom color palettes within a theme. Within a color palette or within a theme palette, users can define up to 18 swatches. User can configure these palettes with ID and description for each and every palette. User can also provide an ID and description for standard SAP palettes. Now let's look into a demo which provides the details about how and what improvements we have made to the theme palettes, to the color palettes. One of the feedback we received was part of the theming itself. What we have done is we have completely redesigned how our theme UI would work. Here I have an existing story which has been opened. I'm going to open the theme preferences. So as I'm opening the theme preferences, what you will notice is that there are two different theme settings that we have introduced. One is theme colors and theme palettes. Now, as part of theme colors, this is what we have done is this is aimed at simplifying the overall workflow to edit and maintain theme specific colors. As a designer, I have the option to pre-configure these values with the set of defined with a set of pre-configured color IDs. And what this does is once these color IDs has been defined for different sections, if you're going into different story settings and if you want to define a color, these color IDs are kept consistent across different story sections. The other improvement we have made is with respect to theme palettes. A lot of complaint has been received around the SAP pre-configured palettes, which cannot be deleted and which is confusing for the users. For example, here I am getting into the edit mode of a chart, and here I want to switch the palettes, and what I can see is there are a lot of palettes which are available within the theme which are pre-configured by SAP, and it is quite confusing, and I will not be using them at all in my stories, and these palettes are irrelevant for me. So what I can do as a designer is I can go back into my theme preference, switch to theme palette. I can remove these standard palettes which are pre-configured. This will provide me with a much cleaner look. What I can also do is I can create a copy of the standard palette, or I can create a copy of the existing palette, and for demo purpose, and here I can define up to 18 different swatches within a palette. Here I can choose the colors based on a hex code, or using a theme picker, using a color picker, or using the pre-configured colors which has been defined as part of the theme colors. Again, you will notice here that these theme colors has been kept consistent across various story settings. I click on save. Once I click save here, I'll just hit save here. Now here you will notice that any changes made to the theme here, to the theme palette, will be kept consistent or propagated across multiple stories. So that's the reason why we are getting this warning message. So once you click on save and apply, the color palette will be kept consistent across all the stories where the theme has been. Now once you start defining the color palette, you will see that the theme palettes has been shortened. It is very clear, consistent. It does not have any junk values. This will avoid all the confusion to the designer. The other improvement that we have made is with respect to switching the theme, which has theme palettes defined. So what this means is we preserve the theme ID with the pre-configured themes, with the pre-configured palettes, without worrying about the incorrect palette being applied. Of course, if a theme palette is not defined or is undefined within a theme, we will switch over to the default color palette.
Now you can add a hyperlink to support a button widget. Button widget is now available as a no-code solution also for story designers, not only for story developer. Means users without application privilege can also use button. You can use button to configure it without any scripting, only through the UI. Navigation functionality now is also accessible to all story creators. That will enable your non-technical users to use button widget without coding, and it can save time by removing the need for custom code in interactive stories. Now let's have a look into the live demo. So here I have already added a button, and with the button, if you can configure a hyperlink, for example, add a hyperlink. Within the hyperlink, you can, for example, use the hyperlink capabilities to navigate to external URL or to a particular story or some data analyzer insights. Now I would like to here to navigate to a story, and then I already select a story name and also already select preview overview page. Then I can decide that the hyperlink should be open in a new tab. So click that done, save it. Now that's run in the run the story. So from this button, I can directly get the click on it, and then I'm already navigated to a new story, like here. Thank you. Code-free configuration for open pop-up and close pop-up in story design time. Story designers now can configure pop-up open-close actions without coding. Users can bind pop-up actions via clickable widgets property panel, though developers still have the full scripting flexibility for advanced scenarios. This will enable non-technical users to add interactive pop-ups without code and save time by removing the need for custom code in interactive stories. For any widgets that are supporting the Hyperlink capability, you can use these widgets to launch the pop-up and to open and close the pop-up. Now let's have a look into the tenant. So within this story, I already configured a pop-up here. You will see within the pop-up, I'm displaying the detailed table information. And for the pop-up configuration, you can also define whether you want to click outside to close the pop-up. Now let's have a look into the first page. On the first page, I already have a button called Open Pop-up. So via button widget, because in the last feature we already learned, button widget now support Hyperlink. Now we can actually through the Hyperlink capability to launch the pop-up. Means from this button you can open the pop-up and close pop-up. The same like a chart and a table, they also support Hyperlink capability. So you can also use this widget, for example here the chart, to add the Hyperlink capability, and also from here to launch the pop-up. So now let's have a look into the view time. So that's exactly the button Open Pop-up. I see the detailed information. Click outside to close the pop-up. And from the chart, I can also open the pop-up and also the close pop-up. So you see, now you can configure the open and the close pop-up without coding and through Hyperlink capability. Bookmark enhancement. With this release, we enable creating bookmark without a story added permission. So here we are separating the global bookmark create permission and the story added permission. Because in a company, some users are only allowed to create a global bookmarks, but without creating story, modifying story. So we want to separate these two global bookmarks from story editing permission, reducing the risk of unintentional story changes and helping ensure that only a designated group of users have added access to the stories. How we are doing that? So administrator can go to the system administration to enable this privilege for the tenant level. So once this toggle is turned on, then only the bookmarks privilege will be checked and without the public or private files privilege. So with that, we really can enable and the global bookmark creator only have the global bookmark privilege, and this group of users are not able to modify stories and change stories, and only a group of users have the story edit rights. Now let's have look into an example. So here first, as I already mentioned in my tenant, I as an administrator go to system and also administration, and in the administration system configuration area, and to turn on this toggle, check only bookmarks permissions for all bookmarks. Means that for the users who only have the global bookmark privilege, do not have the private files and public files privilege, will be able to save the global bookmark. So now I have a row, and in this row I have basically only configured in the BI view row, if we have a look into that. And then in this row you can see that private file and public files create privilege is not defined, and these users are only defined with the bookmarks. With the private bookmarks, they are able to create private bookmarks and be able to create the global bookmarks. Now I would like to log in as a BI viewer. Now I'm logged into as a BI viewer, and here I'm able to, in my previous examples, for example, I would like to compare the actual and also plan and to display that as a bar.
So I can basically change this story. Now I'm able to create the bookmarks. Go to bookmark current state. Even I do not have the public files permission, private files permission, but I only have the global bookmarks permission. I'm now able to create the bookmark test. So now click on the save, and then the bookmark is successfully saved. So with this release, we are providing script APIs to add, remove, and modify chart variants. So we introduce the script APIs for story developers to dynamically add, remove, and modify chart variants and configurations at story runtime. And with that, we are allowing a single chart to support multiple comparison scenarios, like actual versus planning, like actual versus forecast. And that reduces the need to duplicate different charts, and that simplifies the dashboard creation and maintenance effort. Now you already have actually see on my in my tenant, I have already a story. And within a story, I have first the use case would like to show and how you can use the script API to modify the variants on the fly at the story view time. So here I can, story viewer can decide what is the source version. Then for example, I can compare to the plan. And this variance should be actually show as a bar. So click on that. And then we will be able to see actual and the plan, the difference show as bar. And I can also say, it should be show as a data label. Click on that. And then we will be able to see that is a show data label. I can also here switch to the forecast, for example, and then to check and to show this variance again. So here that's the first use case at the story view timer, and you can ad hoc to modify the variance. So use case 2 is at the story view time. I can also ad hoc create a variance. For example, I would like to create a variance between actual and forecast. So in bar, they should be displayed in the bar. So I would like to click, for example, then it basically shows like that. Now, if I have a look into the design time, we can see that under the scripting. So you have a button, where this button, we can actually see the scripting part. So we will define the variances, and we will get the source variances. And then we will basically using this actually to chart.get variance and to update the variance to show different variance type. And for this create variance is the same. And here you go to buttons to get the edit scripts. And we will also show here the logic that we will basically define this source version, define the target version, define variable, show which type it should be basically to show in the data label or integrate it or show in the bar. And then based on the selections, we will be basically use also the chart and get variance.update variance, this script API, to ad hoc to create variance. Now, Composites also supporting where use list functionality. Where use list for the Composites is available in file repository and the composite design time. And it can show story details like name, description, owner, creation date, and so on. Only the accessible stories are displayed. Each can be opened in view mode and in new tab. Table columns in the first list can be sorted here, and you can also search functionality available in the list for filtering and entries. That will enable Composite Designer to effectively manage composites, helping ensure consistency between composites and also their related story, and can avoid to delete the composites and without knowing the impact. So you already in my before demo already see that I'm using actually also the composites. For example, this page header composites. And then Now we can look into these composites. Where are these composites used? So if you go to the composite design time page header, and if you go to the composite details, then you will be able to see and all these actually composites in which story are used. Here, please remember, only the stories you have access to are listed here. And you will get the information the composites are also being used in other 3 stories that you don't have the access to. So via this overview, and that will give you the transparency about the usage of this composite. And if you want to modify the composites or delete the composites, then you are really aware all of the stories will be affected automatically. So that is one place for seeing this where use list for composites. The other place is in the file repository. And then let's filter into the page header. Then we already see this page header. And then you use actually the edit button. And within here, you also see the same information than before. So that's the where use list for the composite. Automatic exposure of script object functions for reuse across multiple stories. Here we enable the automatic exposure of custom script object functions as reusable interface functions within composite definition. And then via that, you will be able to reuse these script objects in all different stories. We allow users to share and reuse script objects and functions smoothly across multiple stories, eliminating the need to manually copy and duplicate scripts for each story. Now let's take an example for that. So I have created a composite called getAddress composite. Via that composite, we want to display the current tenant URL address. So here first you create a script object and basically you define your arguments and then you write the script to define the script objects. So for that script objects, if you turn on that toggle, expose the story in interface functions, then the script objects will be automatically exposed as interface functions use get the address here. So you also get the information the script function is being used as an interface function. The settings here also apply to interface function. And in the interface function area, you can see the same code, of course, and you also see the arguments and so on. And if you want to edit it, because this interface function is connected to the script objects, so you are able to edit these interface functions in the source function. So here, because this getAddress composite is basically without any user interface, it's a technical composite, and you save it, and then you can reuse in all different stories. For example, I would like to use in my story here. I already add this composite at server address here as a component, and I would like to display under this URL in a text element. And now I would like to, the only thing I need to do is I need to call this composite. So here I go to the interface function and using the composite, using this text element dot apply text, and the text is exactly what the composite is delivering that to me. Now let's actually save these stories and then to go to the view time. And then we will be able to see during the story already the initialization, and I can get actually the server URL address for the current server. So that is the one example of expose the reusable script objects and as a composite and can be reused in multiple different stories. CSS enhancements, CSS class picker in styling panel. Now we enable selection of custom CSS class from a drop-down in the widget styling panel. Inform users that widget styling is controlled by CSS for further changes requires CSS update or removal. Thus, you don't need to manually to remember, oh, what are the CSS class name in my CSS file. Now it's more convenient for your user. If you want to define a CSS class, you only need to go to the drop-down, and then you will find all of the CSS class which are defined in your CSS file, and you can just pick one. So now let's have a look into one example. So here, actually, I have already 3 different charts. So now I would like to define a CSS class. For example, I can go to styling panel. And before, I need to remember what is the CSS class name. And now I can using the drop-down boxes to select one. For example, and this is all the classes are defined in my CSS file. So for example, for the chart, I would like to chart 1, and here I would like to select chart 2, and then here I would like to select the chart 3. Then you see, using these CSS class drop-down boxes, I can very easily, conveniently to assign the CSS class to a widget without the need to remember it. CSS enhancements. Now we also support box shadow and the border radius for widgets in the stories. We expand box shadow and the border radius CSS support for all border supporting objects, like charts, table, input controls, texts. So for all of these widgets, you are able to define the CSS class, box shadow, and the border radius. And that will enable consistent styling across the widgets without extra nesting, and that will provide you great flexibility in designing your story. So let's have a look at an example. So here also the same story, I'm using actually this CSS, open the CSS editor, and you will be able to see if I navigate to the chart, to the text, to the input control, and that's the box shadow and also border radius and CSS class are supported. Now I'm able to using these classes to define my chart. That's exactly the example before, and you see that's the border radius for the chart 1, and here for the chart 2 I can define different value for the border radius and also the box shadow. So that's the flexibility, the enhancements that we are and enhance the CSS class for box shadow and for the border radius, for extended to and all the SAC widgets which has a border. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I would like to demonstrate a new enhancement on custom widget. So it now supports the account hierarchy. You can pick different account hierarchy for different reporting purpose. So in order to compare different hierarchy, I have a duplicate chart, then put it side by side and select different hierarchy. Now you can see that data is different for different account hierarchy for different reporting purpose. Thank you. Hello everyone. I would like to demonstrate a new enhancement on custom widget. Now the custom widget supports the account input control and dimension input control. Now I have add account input control. Now I would like to add the dimension input control on the custom widget. So with the account input control and dimension input control, that you can do the selection on the fly on the custom widget. That's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Pranav and I'm a product manager in SAP Business Data Cloud. I'm going to share information about scheduling SAC story based on DSP live connectivity, which we have delivered in 2025 QRC4. This feature is available both in BDC and SAC brownfield tenant. This means starting QRC4 2025, customer can schedule a story which is based on DSP live connection. However, in order to use this feature, they need to take care of following prerequisite. First, they need to create a formation to integrate SAP Analytics Cloud with SAP Datasphere. Second, they need to create a DSP tunnel connection in SSE. And the third, they need to schedule a story which is based on DSP tunnel connection. Scheduling story based on direct connection is not supported. Now let's look into a step to create a formation to integrate SAP Analytics Cloud with SAP Datasphere. SAP Global Account Administrator can create a formation in SAP Business Technology Platform Cockpit to integrate SAP Analytics Cloud with Datasphere. I have logged into a BTP portal. We will use the formation type as integration with SAP Analytics Cloud here. Once this is selected, we will go ahead and select the tenant. I will be selecting a SAP Analytics Cloud tenant and SAP Datasphere tenant over here. Okay, you can see I have selected over here two tenant and I can go ahead and create formation. Now once formation is created, I will go to a connection page in SSE and go ahead and create a new DSP connection. I'll provide a name to the connection over here, and under connection type I have direct and tunnel. I'll go ahead and select tunnel. I'll provide the host detail of Datasphere. Go ahead and create it. Now tunnel connection is created and I already have a story which is based on this tunnel connection. I'll go ahead and open the story and start scheduling workflow. So the scheduling workflow remains as any other scheduling workflow. There is no changes into that with respect to the connection. So I'll go ahead and create a scheduling publication. Over here, I'll provide the necessary details for the schedule.
Thanks for watching.
I'll add
Hopefully
a
our demos have
recipient,
helped you leverage the
and
latest
once
features in SAP
necessary
Analytics
details are
Cloud in your
added, I'll
organization.
go ahead and create.
Remember to leave a like on this
The
video
schedule
and
would
subscribe
be
to our YouTube
created,
channel to
and
stay
this
up to
would
date
run
with all things
during the
Analytics Cloud.
specified time.
We have a lot of exciting
like
new
any other
features coming
schedule.
your way in 2025, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching.